Hi Denise, I'm happy to give you details of that balance test. So let's go to the first page, which is the ratio between omega-6 and omega-3. So we've got 9.9 to 1, which is omega-6 to omega-3. We should have ratio of 3 to 1. And that is really, really important for the reasons that I'm going to explain in a minute. So first, this is on a graph showing us that it's 9.9 to 1. And then we've got protection value. Protection value is telling us that it's insufficient and that protective capacity is to do with cardiovascular disease and blood clots and things like that. And if we've got not enough omega-3, then we don't have enough protection. So in this case, it's insufficient 30%. The second one is looking at just omega-3 exclusively, nothing else, just omega-3, because one thing is the ratio, but the second thing is just omega-3 because there are different types of omega-3. So they should be between 8 and 12. In this case, we've got 5.1%, so it's not too bad, but it would be better if we had more omega-3, and later on it will tell us which exactly omega-3 we need. So mental strength is relating to our brain function, and our brain loves fatty acids, especially omega-3. Brain is a fatty tissue, and it's essential that we have enough of those fats for neurotransmitters and the proper function of the brain. So it's best if it's 1 to 1 or less in the green, but in this case we've got 2.4 to 1, which is not too bad, but it would be better if we were in the green. So that means that memory, concentration, focus, mental health is better. This is cell membrane fluidity, which is my favorite because cell membrane it has to be soft and fluid, and it's for the proper functioning of the body. If the cell is not fluid, then it's rigid, the membranes are rigid. So anyone who is in red, or this one is a little bit highish yellow, so that means that the nutrients are not coming in properly. Not just nutrients, but oxygen, water. There are different receptors on the cell, and for that cell to work properly, we have to be here, ideally 1 to 1, but we've got 7.1 to 1, so it's way too high. So that is absolutely essential, because if we are in that red, that means that there will be inflammation, chronic inflammation. The cell cannot work properly, cannot absorb nutrients and release waste, and that's why it gets inflamed. The second one is the arachidonic acid, which is omega-6 fatty acid, which is inflammatory fatty acid, but we need some inflammation. Not all inflammation is bad. We need some inflammation, and then this has to be balanced with anti-inflammatory omega-3. So in this case, we've got 12.3%, and ideal is between 6.5 and 9.5. So if this person takes balance oil, which is very high omega-3, that will balance that excess of omega-6, and also adjusting the diet, getting rid of the bad seed oils and things like that would really help. And here all the details of fatty acids are all together. So we've got saturated fats, we've got omega-9, omega-6, omega-3, and so looks like palmitic acid is good, is 0, so that means that it's within the target range, so that's good. Then we've got stearic acid, which is too much, so that's the saturated omega-6, that's too much. So that's animal fats and also seed oils. And then we've got omega-9. I will maybe show like this, omega-9. And those omega-9 are a little bit missing, so it's not enough oleic acid. So that's why balance oil contains omega-9 in form of olive oil, and that's gonna improve that reading. Then we've got omega-6, and as we can see here with dehomogamma-linoleic acid, that it's 13% too much. And arachidonic acid, as we've discussed before, is 29% high. So because these are omega-6, we need them, but in this case, they are too high. So that's why we need omega-3, alpha linoleic acid, EPA, DHA, we need to increase them. And here, what we've got is that this one, alpha linoleic acid, is good, but this one, the second one, EPA, is missing 62%. So that's that EPA is 62.8 missing. So EPA is absolutely essential. Even if you put in Google search, what do EPA omega-3, what function they have, you will find that they are essential for our circulation, for our blood oxygenation, absolutely essential. So they are quite low because the range is between 3.3 to 5, and we've got only 1.2. So then the balance oil will fix it. Then we've got DPA, it's also 13% missing. And then we've got a really important one, that's one for the brain, DHA, and that one is 9.5 missing. So that is contained in balance oil, and when someone starts taking balance oil, that will reduce the omega-6. And then later on, this test is telling us about explaining everything. Everything that I said is explained here. For example, here they talk about cell membrane fluidity. Why is it important that we have soft membrane? And also everything is explained. Everything is like here they say cell membrane composition and structural architecture is critical for the health of the cells and the body. On the other hand, the membrane needs to be on one hand, the membrane needs to be rigid enough to provide sound cellular structural architecture. On the other hand, the membrane needs to be fluid enough to let the nutrients in and waste the products out. So that's why there is such an important ratio. That if the ratio is right, the cell will flow properly. So everything is explained. And then what I really like is that they're talking about different sources of those fats. So if someone needs to increase omega-9, then we've got all those sources. The best source is olive oil. Then if someone needs to increase omega-3, then more fatty fish, sardines, mackerel, and obviously zinzino oil. So yeah, it's quite a lot in that test, and I really like that they talking about the diet, but the best way to increase that omega-3 is obviously taking that that balance oil daily.